Please join me now for a moment of meditation and shared silence. Find a comfortable place in your seat and turn inward with me now. This morning, we each hold an empty box. As we enter the December holidays, we know that there is much just around the corner. Schedules often fill very quickly during this time of year. Many of us leap from social gathering to work deadline to family responsibility, often at a breakneck speed. There's food to make, parties to plan, gifts to buy and prepare. At the center of this holiday season, I invite you to hold on to this empty box. It's a box that is a gift from us to you, and it is a box that we ask you to just keep empty. Inside this box is empty space, air, breathing room. This season, we invite you to hold on to some sacred emptiness, some room to simply just be. Really, when it comes down to it, there is nothing that absolutely has to get done. All of the wrapping paper and gifts and events are optional. The wider culture may tell us we need more, that we should be doing more, buying more, collecting more, taking on more. Here in this sanctuary, you are invited to less. Less worry about pleasing others, less fear of being good enough, less need to impress. With less, there is more of what is really the reason for the season. At the center of all the winter celebrations, we offer you this empty box as a reminder that when you strip away all the adornments, something precious still remains. May this empty box be a simple reminder that the greatest gift we can give one another does not come tied up with a shiny bow. The greatest gift we can give one another and ourselves is simply to just be who we are as we are. Just enough just to be. Just enough as we are. May the silence we have shared continue to heal and hold us all. Amen. Blessed be. Have any of you ever visited Walden Pond in Massachusetts? Yeah, a few of you have. So many UU congregations, when the children are at the coming of age, they go on a trip to Walden Pond together to learn about Unitarian and Universalist history. And this is a tradition in the All Souls congregation in Washington, D.C. And the Reverend Rob Hardy's tells this story about when he visited Walden Pond with a group of about 25 teenagers. I made them get up at the crack of dawn, which they hate because they're in high school. And I said, we are all going to make a meditative walk around the circumference of the pond. And then we would sit together at the edge of Thoreau's cabin in silence and reflect on the question, what does it mean to live deliberately? And so we were there, the pajama-wearing teenagers, myself, just sitting as the sun was rising over the trees in contemplation. And a distant rumble started to roar. It was a whistling commuter train barreling down right past Walden Pond, the tracks just a few feet from where we sat in silent meditation. One of the teenagers piped up, "This must have been a lot easier for Thoreau without a commuter train." I had always imagined Thoreau and Walden Pond this way as well, like the teenager. I thought that Walden was this spiritual oasis, a sort of silent retreat away from all the trouble and traffic and noise of modern life. I thought if I lived on Walden Pond, I'd do some great writing too. Maybe I'd even write the American spiritual classic myself. But I hadn't imagined a commuter train. And what Reverend Rob Hardy's told the teenagers is that Henry David Thoreau came to live by Walden Pond in 1845, and the railroad came in 1844, 1 year before Thoreau. So every day Thoreau lived at Walden, he must have heard that steam train multiple times a day, bringing with it the sweeping changes of industry, steel, and development in America. Reverend Hardy's points out that even with the steam train, Thoreau chose that place as his retreat. It didn't stop him from coming there. So when I first heard this story, my sort of image of Thoreau and silent retreat and meditation and writing a spiritual classic was sort of shattered. I thought that you had to go to this sort of perfect place to make these important spiritual discoveries happen. When Marcus and I moved to Rochester, New York, from California this summer, I told him there was one thing I wanted in our new house. I wanted a room just for spiritual practice. It was fine to have a room somewhere else that was where the guests stayed, or we kept the computer or the TV, but I wanted a room with no computer and no TV and no guest bed, just a meditation cushion, a small altar. I thought that if I had this special meditation room, of course I would develop a routine of meditation, at least an hour every day. I would sit in my meditation room and just become more enlightened simply by being in my meditation room. Well, we have a great place, and it has a room that we set up just for spiritual practice. There's no TV, and there's no computer, and there's no guest bedroom, and I've sat in it maybe 6, 7 times since August. That's about it. The magical daily meditation practice that I had longed for didn't spontaneously emerge even when I made the physical space for it in my own house. So of course, I had good intentions. I thought that I would wake up before the alarm and jump out of bed with lots of energy, and I would floss and brush my teeth, and then I would be all ready for meditation. But I don't think that I've ever had a morning that looked exactly like that, and at least not 2 in a row. In reality, my mornings look far different, and I often feel more like Alexander from the children's book, Alexander in the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. This is how Alexander describes his morning. I went to sleep with gum in my mouth, and now there's gum in my hair, and I got out of bed, and I tripped on my skateboard, and by mistake I dropped my sweater in the sink while the water was running, and I could tell. It was going to be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. Have you ever felt that way? I know that I'm guilty of checking my email looking for bad news even before I get out of bed. Too often, I run out of the house without having eaten breakfast because I'm late for another meeting. The other day, I was running late, and as I was walking to the car, my shoe broke. And so then I was driving even late and not well because my shoe was off my foot. And I thought, if I had just meditated this morning, I'm sure none of this would have happened. Or at least I would have a lot more inner peace about my broken shoe. So as I was preparing this sermon, I realized the train that barrels down on me is not actually a physical train, that I have a silent place to go, but that the noise that distracts me is my own high expectations and judgments of myself. These are closer in, much louder, and hard to silence. So if silent meditation works for you, by all means, don't stop. But if you're like me, silent meditation might sound something more like this. I try to follow the wisdom of the Zen master by emptying my mind. Try to focus only on one breath at a time. And it's usually about 15 seconds before I'm thinking about my lower back, or the temperature, or the itchy socks I'm wearing. And then I think, oh no, I've already lost it. I'm already thinking something. And then I judge myself for thinking something when I'm supposed to be emptying my mind. And then I think I'm never going to make it to 10 minutes. It's only been 45 seconds. Get me out of here. Whoever thought this was a good idea? I must be a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad spiritual human being. Maybe it's karma. Why does this happen? Why do those critical voices seem to come in almost automatically? And it doesn't just happen when I'm on the meditation cushion. A few months ago, I was navigating an unfamiliar neighborhood. We had just moved, and I didn't really know my way around. And I was coming from an appointment and going to another one, and it was like a left turn, and I did a right turn, and somehow I ended up sort of at the entrance to Mount Hope Cemetery. And I thought, oh, Emily, one wrong turn and you're in the cemetery. How did that happen? So instead of taking the first roundabout and coming back to Mount Hope Avenue, I kept driving and I went further in. And it was a September afternoon. The sun was bright. The fall colors were beautiful. The sloped land was speckled with trees and headstones. It was a different world than the busy intersection 2 blocks away. I slowed the car down and I parked, and it was 20 minutes before I realized how long I'd been just sitting there. I took a few deep breaths. Maybe I had not taken a wrong turn after all. Perhaps there are no wrong turns on our spiritual path. One of my teachers, the Reverend Kat Cox, says, most of us have been taught that self-criticism is the route to self-improvement. It is not. It is not. Your soul is never calling for you to beat yourself up. Your soul is never calling for you to beat yourself up. Another of my spiritual teachers is my mother, and she loves to share this story with me. I've heard it my whole life growing up. So my mom grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. And she went to college in California, but she didn't have a job yet, so she moved back to St. Paul, Minnesota after she graduated college to kind of figure out what her next steps were. But living at home was too rough after being in college and thinking of herself as an independent adult. So she was looking for another place to move into, and she found this community as kind of an Eastern spiritual community. They were mostly Americans, people from Minnesota, but they were studying this path of teachers called Ananda Marga. And so she lived with them. It was a very low-cost living situation. And she tried to follow some of the spiritual teachings of the Ananda Margis that many of the Americans had learned when they were traveling in India. So one of the practices that the American students had learned in India, watching the monks every morning, was that they took a very cold shower at 3 a.m. before they went into the meditation hall. And the monks stressed to the students that the shower was an important part of preparing for meditation. So when the students returned to the United States, they took very cold showers before starting their meditation practice. Cold showers in August, September, October, November, cold showers in December and January, all through the dark, cold winter. My mom said she didn't really stick very much to that practice, but she felt a little guilty for it. And several of the monks came in January that first winter to visit their students. And they were shocked to find that their students were taking cold showers before meditation. No, the monks said. The cold water from the shower is to cool your body before you begin meditation. We do that because the meditation hall is so hot and crowded. It is a hygiene issue. The cold shower is made to ease your body, to make a meditation a better experience. My mom cannot tell the story without laughing. Laughing at herself, at the students, laughing at how hard they had been trying to do things right, to be on the right path, and yet they had been so far off target. I think this is true in a variety of ways when we begin to try a spiritual path or a practice. We think that there must be rules or an order to follow, and that if we get busy with something else or we don't do it right, that we've failed. Reverend Doug Kraft is a Unitarian Universalist minister who studied Buddhist meditation intensively for the past 30 years. He shared that when we begin to meditate, in order to not get busy judging ourselves and others, the mind needs a wholesome activity to engage itself with. In Eastern schools of thought, there's an understanding that the mind needs to be focused, that it is helpful to think of a single object, a mantra, or the breath, or an affirmation. And for many decades, Doug used to meditate this way. His singular focus was on the air moving in and out of his nostrils. And when his mind wandered, he gently tried to remind it to come back. Doug says there are advantages to this kind of meditation, that the sensations are simple, they're here and now, and attending to the breath makes us more present. However, Doug said that in the Western mind, we have been well trained to focus. We have been educated and schooled to have a very linear way of thinking. And for the Western mind, meditation might have a different purpose for us. If our tendency is towards over-focusing and being very driven, then there might be a high value in an open, softer lens for our meditation practice. If we block out all but one thing, in the Western mind, we are failing to observe and embrace the wisdom that comes from being with all that is, from attention not on one single thing, but a larger whole. And a meditation that is focused on heart opening, on expanding our awareness and consciousness of our connection to all the things, the barreling train and the self-judgment, might be a more powerful tool for the Western mind. I still don't get it, I said to Doug. What am I actually supposed to do when I sit in my meditation room? He said, give your mind another job. Give your mind the job of attending to kindness, compassion, joy, and peace. Send those qualities to yourself and to others. The easiest way for me to do this is to think of my grandmother. I think I've mentioned her before, but she lives in Webster, New York. She's 93 years old. And she lived before, actually, in Canandaigua at Ferris Hills. So she's in a different facility now, but she's my only living grandparent, so she's pretty special to me. And whenever I go visit her, she always says the same thing. Marcus can testify to this. Oh, Emily, it is so good to see you. You look so good. You're just doing so well. I just love you so much. I'm just so impressed with everything you're doing. It's incredible. You are just incredible, Emily. So in meditation, I have been trying to bring in my grandmother's voice. Because what we're doing in meditation is trying to bring more love into the world. So, what better way to do that than with our grandmother's voices? I'm not going to take any cold showers. I'm not going to try to judge myself quite so much. And I invite you to have a little less judgment of yourselves as well. May we sit by Walden or our television or our computer or wherever we are, and may we wonder what it is when we just are who we are. Amen. Blessed be.
once more in body or spirit, and we'll sing together 10:08. It's When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, for our final hymn.
The hand you hold is connected to you. We are one body. We depend on each other more than we know. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again. Amen.
Join us for worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, a welcoming congregation. We are located at 3024 Cooley Road, 4 miles west of South Main Street, Canandaigua, just north of the intersection with Routes 5 and 20. Look for the blue signs just before the turn. Your comments about this program or questions about the church are welcome at 585-396-1370 or at our website, www.canandaiguauu.org. Producer and editor, Daniel Brigham.